Hello and welcome back to Fantasy Hockey Picks and Bets. I'm your host, DJ Mitchell, here in my newest edition jersey. I got a Tampa Bay Lightning Nikita Kucherov, all black. It's got I don't even know what to call this design, but it's the alternate jersey. They just won the outdoor game against Nashville, and that was a ton of fun to watch. But if you were watching hockey on Saturday and you did not also have your other TV or phone or tablet or whatever you use tuned into the Toronto Maple Leafs game, then you missed out on an historic game. We're going to get to that in our first matchup of the day. And I'm telling you right now, I haven't seen a game like that in my, I don't know if we have ever seen a game like this. And it was really, really cool to see. I had the Toronto puck line. I was feeling real good about it, but let's not waste too much time here. We're going to talk about Toronto first in the first game. So might as well just dive right in here. So we are 3 games Monday, the February 28th, correct? Yeah, February 28th, the last day of February. Probably should have paid my landlord here. And we have 3 really fun games. And the reason is because all these games are pretty close to the mean, which I have not had a slate for in a long time. So I'm excited to get right into it. All of these games are starting after 7:30 Eastern time. So plenty of time to get out of work, take a look at everything, get some bets in. And the final nightcap we have at 10:30. So you can stay up late in the night. If you're on the East Coast or on the West Coast, you can enjoy watching the final game and maybe sweating out a DFS lineup. So we'll start with Toronto at Washington. Now, the last game for Toronto was a absolute doozy. So for starters, the expected goals in this game, I'm just going to go off of what HockeyViz has. 3.2 goals were expected for Toronto to a 2.2 expected goals for Detroit. Now, expected goals generally come in a bit lower than the actual because, goalies aren't always making every save that they probably should. That being said, a team giving up 7 on 2.2 is really bad, but 10 on 3.2 is got to be worse mathematically. And wow, I can't really put into words watching that game, the emotion that I felt other than pure pain when Toronto almost blew the puck line for me, but ended up pulling it out. Amazing stuff. It's hard for me to bet Toronto here after watching that game. I think what's even more impressive than Toronto scoring 10 is they didn't have a single power play. I personally am going to go back to the well on Toronto. I bet it really early, the moment the line came out, because I thought it would be a bit disrespectful to Toronto, and it was. The line's already moved a good bit, so I don't know where it's going to land. But Toronto is right now minus 130 on the road in DC. Now, the Capitals on the other side of this played a putrid game. It was one of the slower paced games I've seen in the recent maybe 10, 12 days. They lost 2-1. Expected goals were 2.6 for the Capitals to 1.9 for Philadelphia. So Philadelphia had no offense at all, just squeaked 2 goals in on about 2 goals expected, and Washington couldn't score. And the problem with Washington, it really is the bottom 6 is bad. I don't think that's going to, go overlooked. And yeah, is Garrett Hathaway not the worst player in the world? I think that's fair to say at this point. But if you're relying on him to score when your top line isn't going, that is not going to be your best case scenario. Now, they started the game with Kuznetsov, Shiri, Ovechkin, ended up shifting it back to Ovi, Kuzi, and Wilson, Backstrom, Oshie, Shiri, Oshie being back in this one. So, I think you could kind of go a couple different ways. I think Washington's going to be a little bit contrarian in DFS, but probably not insanely contrarian, being as a lot of models will now think that Toronto is completely porous. And also they kind of broke a lot of models with how many goals they scored above expected themselves. So this game might end up getting piled on. It's hard to know off the cuff. OV down to 8,400 feels like not a bad spot to jam. Obviously a lot going on kind of behind the scenes with him. Could be other stuff weighing on his mind with, all the quotes. You can read them if you'd like. You can talk yourself out of him if you'd like here, but I think that he's a good play. Toronto has no goaltending, and Washington also, their goaltending is pretty bad. They've kind of given up more goals against expected a lot recently, and the past 2 games they've been just not good on either side of the ice. So I think you could really talk me into a lot here. I think this is probably the easiest game to get excited about in DFS. I like the over at 6. I actually took it at 6.5, but I don't think it's a slam dunk. And I do think a lot of people are going to come in on the over just because of last game. It isn't something you necessarily have to do here, but I did play it. I would be disingenuous not to at least mention that. Put a nice little $25 on it. I think it's more than likely going to hit. The goaltending's bad. Washington will not get Vanacek back. They sent him to Hershey to get some games in the AHL. And Toronto, it doesn't really matter who they're starting because those Campbell and Mrazek have been terrible. At least Campbell's had some good games. Mrazek hasn't really had many, if any, great games. Just kind of pulling up his game log if you'd like. I mean, there's a couple games sprinkled in there where you're like, okay, yeah, like the game against Minnesota, he played really well. And then, came in relief and got the win with 6 saves on 8 shots. Impressive stuff there. So, yep, not fantastic news. But I think that this game, like I said, should have a bit higher pace than the other two, and I'll get to all the reasons why. So I think that this is probably my favorite over. This and then honestly, I don't mind the next game either. But yeah, Toronto, I like them fine here. I think this is a decent spot for them to get it right. They haven't really had a get right game lately. So maybe if you want to talk yourself into that as well. And as far as props are concerned, I do think that you could talk a lot of things on Toronto make sense. Looking at their last game, they ran a pretty even kind of smattering of the top 6. And then guys like Spezza, Robertson, and Simmons got like very, very little run, but I expect them to get back to normal. I guess the one piece of, food for thought here is if you're trying to jam in a lot of upper tier guys, do you get cute and take a cheaper defenseman on Toronto with Muzzin not going to be back? You got guys like Rasmus Sandin playing pretty good run. I think he's probably the minimum salary play here, even though his rates are putrid. He's just as likely to get you a 0 as he is a 10 in DraftKings. As far as like, can he get 2 assists? Sure, he's going to be out there at 5-on-5. But last game, he played 19 minutes, actually was right in line with Morgan Riley before time on ice. They had 10 goals and Sandin had 0 points in DraftKings. I almost feel like that shouldn't be possible, but there it is. He played with Lyubushkin, who I thought would kind of help him out a little bit in the sense that Lyubushkin's super defensive, but he didn't have a shot on goal. He didn't have an assist, didn't even have a block shot. So I don't think he'll be piled on because people might just see the 0 in a 10-goal game and say, well, I guess never mind. I mean, that was the only pairing for Toronto that didn't give up a goal at 5-on-5. So I don't think they're going to lose any run. They were just boring, which I think you can bounce back from. If you're playing boring in a game where you have 7, I think that might bode well for them. Riley and Lindgren are the ones that got torched. Lindgren might end up being out of this game. I can't imagine they really want to run him back after how bad he looked against Detroit, but we'll see. With all that, I think we can move forward. We'll have to keep an eye on Justin Schultz as well. He didn't end up playing Saturday, although he was expected at one point. So I think he'll be back, but that's another guy to keep an eye on at minimum salary. He's a pretty good player when he's in at minimum salary for sure. Game number 2, Vancouver on a back-to-back against New Jersey. Now it's just about 7:00. We don't have the starter yet for the Vancouver Canucks at the Rangers. We should in probably about 10 or 15 minutes here, but it looks like it's going to be Demko. So we're probably going to get Halak here. Now Vancouver plus 110, New Jersey minus 130. I mean, the way I'm looking at this right now, where I'm sitting is, if I could get Vancouver a better plus money, I would probably take it because of how good they've been playing. I mean, their last game before, obviously, the Rangers game, which hasn't happened yet. And by the time you're listening to it, it has happened. So we're going to have to take in that information. But they slaughtered Calgary. I mean, they beat them bad. 7-1 was the final, and they actually really outplayed them at home. The expected goals had them almost a goal better. They really, really, really played well against maybe the best team in the league or a top 5 team in Calgary. I'm not going to go against them right now. And I actually bet them against the Rangers going against, Georgiev and Ned. I like them to win this game. I think, again, if you get me plus 130, 140, I think I'm going to grab Vancouver for sure. But I do respect New Jersey a bit more than most. They've looked great, but when the goaltending isn't there, they lose 8-5 like they did last time out against Chicago. And I don't trust any of their goalies. So we're probably going to see Halak and net for Vancouver. Also been very bad. with the goaltending being this suspect, this bad, I'm taking the over at 6, just on the principle that there's enough finishers on both sides to get this done. We definitely know where it's going to come from the Devils. Their top 6 has been pretty good. Bratt had the 2-goal night. Hischier had a bunch of points against Chicago. Hughes and Sharangovich and Mercer. Zaka also in that top with Hischier and Bratt. So we kind of know where it's going to come from. It's easy to put a stack together and feel good about it because it's going to be cheap and contrarian to play the Devils. I don't know how high owned Hamilton will be. Amazingly, he was not on the top power play full time. They actually had Severson still on the top unit. Blew me away. I don't even know what to say about that. That is criminal, absolutely criminal. I can't imagine it sticks long. Hamilton didn't quite get there. He had 12 fantasy points in his first game or second game back after a long stint out. But I still like him here just fine with any sort of a devil stack if you're going to go that route. I'm personally much more inclined to play Mercer, who was not on the top power play, unfortunately, but playing Mercer with Hughes just because Mercer's 2,900 and he's just, that's your value play of the night, in my opinion. He's getting the ice time. He has, I would say, fine rate stats to get me there, but 2,900 on DraftKings, that feels like a real nice jam. Especially with a team on a back-to-back, etc. But Jack Hughes has just been so incredibly good that he really lifts all of his line mates around him. And this is a guy that's, 38 points in 33 games. And it kind of feels like it's going way under the radar. He's definitely here to stay. He's one of the better players in the NHL, and I'm really excited to see what he can do. So I'm kind of stacking through that line. I see the narrative of going Hischier, Bratt, and Hamilton because it could all be power play correlated, and it definitely doesn't break the bank. It's very, very cheap. But those lines are real good. I think them and Toronto make a lot of sense together, but it might almost be over-owned in a sense. You might want to find a differentiating piece to mix in with that kind of a lineup build. On Vancouver, they just won 7-1, so we can't imagine they're going to make any changes. It's really hard to stack bank. They're kind of doing what Florida does, and they're making it difficult for us to find the perfect stack. Horvat, Besser make the most sense with Quinn Hughes. Quinn Hughes is probably my favorite play per dollar on the entire slate. At 5K, him and Hamilton just feel like absolute steals. I think that's going to be an easy cash build. But Hughes is really starting to take form as a prolific rate shooter in his past few games here, but he's had way more shots than I think that we're used to. And if he's going to continue to do that, he is going to be an absolute steal at 5K. 9 shots on goal in this past 2, even more attempts in that mix there. If they get on net for him, this is a guy that has that kind of upside. And in the last game, what did he have? He's not showing up, but yeah, he did 4 shots on net, 2 assists. And that's really what you're playing him for. If this guy can hit the shots bonus and get you a couple points, you are really in a good spot because I don't know how high owned he's going to be here. But I like him a ton. He's definitely a player that I'm kind of keep my eye on as like the steal in DraftKings every night. And if you're stacking Vancouver, he could not make more sense because their power play is so good right now. And he is the quarterback. He is the guy that's moving the puck to the right guy. I'm a huge fan of Quinn Hughes, and I'm really excited to see what he can do. That first power play has Horvat and Besser, which I said is probably the easiest stack to take because the 5-on-5 correlation with the power play correlation. But if you want to get different, you could just play Pettersson with any of this and feel good about it. Pettersson's been shooting a bit more, especially on the power play. I think that you can make a real point for, him being, a guy that like, just because the correlation isn't there is going to get underowned. And there hasn't been that. I don't think he's had a 5-shot on goal game all year. I'm trying to go way back. Now, it hasn't happened since November, I believe. Wow. He ended up having in that game 4 shots missed the net and 3 get blocked. Still had 3 on net and scored 2 goals. I mean, this guy is really just waiting and right on the edge of absolutely smashing. I'm going to try to get it before it happens. And this might be the right spot. So I think if you're stacking Vancouver on a 3-game slate, Horvat, Besser, Pettersson, and Quinn Hughes is a perfect 4-man stack. I'm definitely going to be rolling that out in GPPs. That might be the way to go. If you think New Jersey's goaltending is as bad as it's been, it probably could be again here. So let's do it. I think I like that a lot. I think Pettersson to score, Pettersson to have a point is totally fine. Quinn Hughes point prop. I might look if I can find a 2-point night for him. That might be even more fun because he's just such a good power play quarterback. And when he's shooting and it's hitting net, that leads to rebounds, that leads to goals. So everything being said in this game, probably not going to bet the money line. Definitely already have the over. So let's roll with that and might consider Vancouver if we get better plus money on them. Once the books see a lock in net, etc., it might get up to that plus 130, 140 on a back-to-back. And they're good. They're playing so good right now. I don't care. Final game of the night. Boston at LA. LA plus 115. Is this a back-to-back? Hold on. I thought I had that note written down. No. Not back-to-back. Okay, I'm making sure. So both teams are going to have a day of rest. Boston's been on a very, very long road trip on the West Coast. They just came out and, I mean, really, really, really beat down San Jose. It was only 3-1 was the final, but man, it's you rarely see the expected goals exactly 3-1, but 3.1 for Boston, 1.4 for the Sharks, which is really saying something because they have been firing and they've looked really good offensively. Boston put the screws to them and beat them, I mean, to a pulp. Yeah, I'm definitely thinking that it's hard to bet against Boston here. But you know what team has played better, more consistently than LA? I bet them against the Islanders. They go out and win 5-2. They have, you know, really three lines that are just good. That good three lines and a fourth line that isn't abysmal. I feel like that's what I keep saying about them. There's just more depth that meets the eye here. Quick should be in net for them. I'm just not touching these money lines. I have no faith in them. I slightly shade the under here. That's the best way of going about it, but I don't think I'm really going to conclude this in my mix for any reason. What I was really considering was taking the plus 1.5 on LA, but minus 225 is real steep. I think if you're going to do that, you might as well go all the way and take him at plus money at home. This is a team that just took over a playoff spot. They're really rolling high right now. I have no problem with it. That would be my lean, I guess, at least, is to just take LA, but I don't think it's worth it. I'm not going to stay up to watch it. So I normally don't bet what I'm not watching. Yeah, I think it's totally fine to fade this one out. It always feels bad to fade a game in DraftKings that finishes the night because then everyone starts catching you when it goes crazy. But this might be a perfect spot if you aren't playing Boston to just grab Jonathan Quick as your goalie. He's played great. 3 straight wins. The last game, he 24 out of 25 saves and 19 DraftKings points. Definitely gets it done for you. So if you're fading Boston, which I think I might end up doing here, it makes a lot of sense to just throw in Quick. Now, the one note on Boston that's important to get to that I think it's been mentioned, but top line is Bergeron, Marchand, and DeBrusk. That's pretty cool. DeBrusk only saw 13 minutes. He didn't get any power play one run, but he is playing with Bergeron and Marchand. That's tough to beat at 3,300. I don't think it's going to go overlooked. There's just no way. Hall is with Haula and Pastrnak. If you want to go that route, Haula is 2,900. Is he, a substantially different play than playing DeBrusk? It's a little bit of a downgrade, but in a stack with Pastrnak, I think it could make sense. Haula had been a rate shooter in the past, but hasn't as of late. And, this year he's been pretty average as Boston continues to not find a second line center. I don't know. I mean, I think that it's a bit contrarian. Instead of playing a, Bergeron 6,500 with DeBrusk, which I think will be a lot higher owned than Pastrnak with Haula, it's just a way to get different. And if you think, well, Kopitar's line, et cetera, and Danault really about a really, really good defensive center can shut down the top line in Boston on a long West Coast trip. Maybe you think, well, Haula and Pastrnak get going. I don't know. Crazier things have happened. So with all of that being said, the only other player I wanted to mention in this game is definitely Victor Arvidsson. He's a guy I've been really jamming. That game against Arizona almost saved my DraftKings lineup, the 23.2 goal night, but he's been popping kind of everywhere. Just a really, really good player, a guy that's going to be very low owned, doesn't stack well with his line mates, but I think if you're getting one piece from this game, that might be the best way to go here is just play Quick and Arvidsson. I do like Drew Doughty a ton as well at 5,800. It just feels a little bit low for how much run he gets, but I don't think I just would rather play Hughes and Hamilton personally. So that's probably the way I'm going to start and finish it. I'm not saying that fading Boston feels good, but when it gets to paying up for Toronto, paying up for Washington, or paying up for Boston, I'm choosing Washington and Toronto, which I think the field might agree with me on. but that's okay. You know, I get different elsewhere, and I've mentioned some really good plays there. So favorite plays of the night, went probably way too long for a 3-game slate, but that's okay. Favorite plays of the night, I am going with Toronto. I think that they find a way to get it done here. I almost like the over a little bit more at -120. It almost feels a little bit cleaner to me, but I don't really mind taking Toronto with the over and just saying that Toronto wins by scoring the goals. Samsonov's not very good and been bad. I see no problem with it. So I did actually do that in a parlay. Weirdly enough, on DraftKings, it allowed me to parlay them together at a better price than their built-in parlay of Toronto and the over. I don't really know what was up with that, but hey, I got it at like +320, I think. That feels pretty good. Game number 2, I'm checking right now for you. It is Demko in net, so we're going to have Halak in net. So I like the over 6. I'm going to grab it right now. Actually, I hadn't quite grabbed it yet. I was waiting for that news, but I'm going to take the over 6 here. And that's probably the best bet from this game in general. But Vancouver, if it gets up high enough, +130, +140 range, that is where I'm going to grab them. I don't think it's worth grabbing the puck line, but if you are going to grab the Vancouver puck line, I think probably pair it with the over itself. Just say that New Jersey implodes in net, which is likely or at least fair enough to happen. I think that's an interesting way of doing it. If it allows you to do that on these books. I don't know if I've ever actually bet that before. And the last game of the night, not touching. If I'm going to play anything, it's going to be Arvidsson to have a point, Arvidsson to have a goal, just something fun like that. He's just such a great rate shooter. And I mean, the other guy that is on that line that I didn't even really mention is Trevor Moore, who really has, I would say, been a very good value play that's finally getting priced up a bit at 4,100. I don't know if I mentioned him, but a guy that's just very silently playing great hockey. Doesn't pair with Arvidsson on the top power play, neither does Danault though. So, I mean, if you want to go ultra off the wall, more into Danault type of situation, probably not for me, but just something to consider at least. So yeah, I think that probably does it. I don't think I missed anything too big, I hope. Remember to follow me at DJ_Mitchell94, follow me at Media Network, follow the other guys as well. I try to post my picks, but I don't post them every single night just because, frankly, if I feel like I'm tailing someone in any capacity, I just don't post it. That'd be the best way to put it. If I really try to not look at any other person's anything, or if I do look at them and they're not the same as what I like, then I post them. But I try not to, if I have the same 2 picks as someone else that I follow, I try not to post them. That's really the reason, if in case you're wondering why I didn't post picks this night. But if you ever ask me, DM me, I'll tell you what I played. I don't really mind it in that capacity, but I just don't like to tout what other people tout. I know there's no paid description for me, so I kind of do whatever I want, but still, it just feels disingenuous. So DJ_Mitchell94, Morningscape podcast. If you don't follow it or listen to it, that's all DFS Tuesday, Thursday. And I try to retweet all the lines on that page. So if you're a person that's trying to find the news and notes, go right there and you'll be good to go. So thank you for listening. Enjoy your Monday slate. And if you win any big prizes or take any big bets down, send it my way. I haven't really gotten as many screenshots lately. I want to get some more. We got one on Sunday, but I want more. So take care. Enjoy your Monday.